It's a beautiful bacon day, Cookie Crusaders. Today we're going to be talking about Cream Unicorn's team that is the recommended team right now. Some people are using monocle, some people are using feather, some are using robes. Really how you want to set it up. Main reason we're using robes is we want to focus in on Caramel Arrow and Espresso being our main damage dealers. Financer Cookie is doing protection to Caramel Arrow, and Espresso is providing the interruptions and the injuries. Vampire is taking out the back lines, whether it be another Cream Unicorn or just any general healer that is placed there. And so this synergy that's happening between this team, it's doing quite a lot. Now you might be thinking, well, you only got one healer and you have no healing treasures. And you really don't have any tanks other than potentially Financer Cookie. How is it that you're keeping everybody alive? The nice thing about what Cream Unicorn does is that as a solo healer, attacks all of the team, giving all of them some quick burst healing every time that skill activates. So really the way we have it set up is we did full cooldown, and we try to get some good damage resistance on there, and we try to do some attack power to get some powerful heals. It's definitely difficult because sometimes pulling toppings like these and putting them on a cookie like this that's brand new can be pretty difficult, especially if you have to break a team apart. So I understand if it's not something you can put together right away. If you can't, I'd recommend just some elements to keep Cream Unicorn alive and hope that the activations are quick enough for your team's setup and stabilization. Vampire is running the tried and true attack power. Espresso is running our critical build setup. And Caramel Arrow is also running an attack power. Now, we could be running critical for Caramel Arrow and still get the protection from Financer Cookie, but that would require running either almonds or something else for Vampire Cookie. Because if we do not run the attack power settings that we have for Caramel Arrow here, then we do not actually have the option to get the protection from Financer onto Caramel here. And the real reason that we're doing that is because we want our speed unit, our burst unit, to be dealing the most damage to take out the opponent as quick as possible. And you'll see how that's going to work against a good deal of teams here. So, let's go ahead and take it into battle. Show you what's happening. Now, it's not beating out every team, but it definitely is packing a huge punch against quite a lot. The robes is not only applying to Caramel Arrow here, but also applying to our Vampire Cookie. So those two are the ones that are getting the speed buff. Espresso dealing the injury and the area damage, very helpful. As you can see, we almost lost Vampire and Espresso there, but Cream Unicorn did those quick burst heals. And because the health of Cream Unicorn is still low, you're going to have a high chance of him being taken out a lot of the time, unless you have some pretty high damage resistance, especially when they're running someone like Vampire. That's just a counter to Cream Unicorn as it is. But, as you can see, the healing, pretty quick, pretty fast. And that's because the more damage everyone else takes, the more healing Cream Unicorn can apply to the team. So that's really what the benefit of running the solo healer. Technically, yes, Financer is a healer too, but as you can see, most of that's been applied to Caramel Arrow. That's where most of that healing's going, is from Financer Cookie. And then the damage, pretty focused on Caramel Arrow. You can see our Espresso still actually outpaced their Espresso because of the critical damage, but really most of the damage was focused on Caramel Arrow there, just knocking out their team as quick as possible. So we're going to try a few other fights just to make sure that you get good analysis of how this team is doing and what it's doing. This seems to be what the new meta is. There, I'm sure, are going to be some other teams that emerge, but what this team is doing is it's just pushing the boundaries really fast against the enemy, especially because Cream Unicorn has the silence, which has now been changed to act very similar to how Frost Queen's skill works, where once a cookie's frozen, their skill stops moving. Now, as you can see, this team was able to take the win here. Let's analyze what happened. Their Caramel pushed even further and faster because of the skill increase from Eclair and the attack increase from Pomegranate Cookie. So they just focused on completely buffing Caramel to the absolute maximum and then freezing down our skills with Frost Queen. which that's an understandable and valid play. So what a good counter could have been here, if we had really truly analyzed the team, is that we could have at least had our Espresso sit out for maybe Dark Cacao, so that A, more tanky hits, and B, shield removal since they have a Claire. And also with the healing, we had really good healing from Cream Unicorn, but I think instead of Financer Cookie there, maybe we could have subbed in someone like Wildberry or Hollyberry. So those could have been some optional changes we could have made to potentially win that match, but it's still good to see it so that you get an idea of what you're going to be fighting against. Now, someone like this, they have a level 9 scroll, level 8 insignia, they don't have high star promotions. This should be something that we should absolutely dominate just because of the sheer gap difference of power. But you can still see what they're able to do to our team, if anything, which they can take a little bit of a chunk quickly, but Cream Unicorn just quickly burst heals past it, where it's like if they had never done anything in the first place. And then just the speed damage from Caramel Arrow just tearing into their team. Their insignia did help a little bit to keep them surviving a little bit longer, but in the end it just wasn't enough. And you can see we didn't have nearly as much damage because they didn't have nearly as much health. So we had less damage to even output to take the win. Let's go ahead and do one more battle. This one's going to be probably a traditional one where it's Parfait and maybe Caramel Arrow in the middle, or maybe Espresso. More than likely it's going to be Espresso. So, yep, it's Espresso and Parfait. So this team we should be able to take down as long as our Espresso and Vampire stay alive at least long enough. Thankfully, because of the magic candy that Vampire has, we do get that free revival on Vampire. So really, it's mostly focused on getting Espresso to deal a lot of damage and keep Espresso Cookie alive. And then Caramel Arrow is being protected by Financer Cookie, outputting a supreme amount of damage. And then, as you can see, they were able to do some pretty hefty damage to our backline, but we took out their Vampire, and Financer and Caramel are a great pairing at the end there. So many buffs, so many different things happening, and a huge amount of damage. Their Espresso did a lot of damage, did a really good amount. They must have either really great critical toppings, maybe really good cooldown toppings, who knows. But whatever they were doing, actually, no, what probably happened, they probably had Searing toppings and had Financer being the booster for their Espresso, which is a smart and valid play. It's something we could do too, but we're focused on Caramel Arrow on our team. Espresso is just the nice handy backup, so that we still have good DPS damage output. What do you think of this team? Is this something that you'd be willing to run? Do you think you could build this topping setup, these cookies setup? Is this something that even looks fun? It's definitely more of a speed-focused team, more just a get in, kill them, get out. Definitely that type of build. You can run it with lower promotion cookies and still make out pretty well. It makes some differences, of course, having those ascensions. I'm not going to, dismay that. But it doesn't mean that you can't run it with like 5-star cookies or 4-star cookies. You can still run it. I don't know if you'll be getting into Master 1 and Grandmaster with it at those promotions. And if you do, great. I'm super happy, but that will probably be just due to your toppings. I mean, you got to think my toppings right here. If we go down here, we only have 8% damage resistance on Financer here. Only 10% on Caramel Arrow. Only 18% on Espresso. 4.9% on Vampire. 16% on Cream Unicorn. So there's room to grow for more survivability on the substats. And there's also room to grow on some of the other things that we want to focus on these stats, like Espresso here. We have a great crit and we have some decent damage resistance, but honestly it'd be nice to have a higher cooldown or to have some attack stats. It'd be nice for Caramel Arrow here to have more attack speed and more damage resistance. It'd be nice for Financer here to have more HP and more damage resistance, so that way it's just longevity of the cookie. So there's room to grow. So this team is far from min-maxed and far from perfect, but it's definitely something that can compete well in this current meta. And that could change within days. That could very quickly change. This is just what I'm seeing as the strong output team right now with Cream Unicorn. And if you're going to invest in Cream Unicorn, this is what I would personally recommend to use. Let me know your thoughts and opinions, though. I'd love to hear them as always. And thank you so much for stopping by. Have a wonderful day.